Hello students, welcome back to the IPR classes. Today we are going to discuss the impact of intellectual property rights on biodiversity. So let's start. What is biodiversity? It consists of plants and animals. Plants are of so many kinds. They can be in the form of, for the purpose of food and cash crops. Then they can be in the form of trees. They can be kitchen crops where we use them in our as our food. Then animals consist of domestic animals, birds, insects. All this is called as biodiversity. Then what do you mean by biological diversity? Biological diversity, which is also called as biodiversity, refers to the variety of forms at all levels of organization. It can be described as totality of genes, species and ecosystem within a particular region. Now it is a wealth which is a product of a revolution from so many millions of years, which is believed. Then over the course of time, human cultures have also emerged and adapted to local environments and discovering, using and altering their biotic resources. In the earlier period when humans were there on this earth, they were wanderers. Then slowly and slowly they started realizing the importance of biodiversity, and then they started settling in some places, and then from there they started forming societies, and then growing crops of varieties, then taming animals as domestic animals, etc. This is another slide which shows different kinds of biodiversity on the land and inside the sea also. Now, biodiversity also can be divided into three hierarchical categories. The first one is the genes. Genes means the DNA that is present in our cell. Then from DNA, species form, which is of different kinds. And then with the species and different kinds of animals, we form and the surrounding and the natural surrounding is formed. That surrounding or that region is called as ecosystem. You can see an example of here. There is a water, there are fish in the water, then we have surface with trees, birds flying in the sky, sun is shining very brightly. This entire area is called as ecosystem. If any one part of the ecosystem gets disturbed, all these animals and plants and insects are going to get affected. Therefore, preservation of the biodiversity is very, very essential. Let's go ahead. This is how we depend on each other. Each species of animals, birds and plants and insects depend on each other. You can see, you can make out from here. This is called as biodiversity web. Now, as we have discussed earlier in our slide, the biodiversity is divided into so many kinds. One of it is genetic diversity. What do you mean by genetic diversity? It refers to the variation of genes within species. There occur distinct populations of the same species, such as thousands of traditional rice varieties in India. See, rice is only one variety, one species, but it has got so many varieties. You can make out from here. These are, see, one item is one, that is common item is rice, but its species are so many. Now similarly, Indian rhinos, we have different species within different varieties within species. But cheetah, in case of cheetah, there is no such kind of diversity. Cheetah is cheetah. Okay, let's go ahead. Species diversify refers to the variety of species within a region. An island with two species of birds and one species of lizard, for example, has greater taxonomic diversity than an island with three species of birds and no lizards. Human cultural diversity could also be considered as part of the diversity. Not only animals and plants and insects, but human activities also can be one of the part of the ecosystem. Like genetic and species diversity, some attributes of human culture such as nomadism and shifting cultivation represent solutions to the problem of survival within a particular environment. Now we know how to preserve our environment. Okay, so with the help of the experience that the people have, they come up with different kinds of diversity. Okay, so like other species of biodiversity, cultural diversity helps people adapt to changing conditions. It is evident within language, religion, religious belief, land management practices, art, music, social culture, crop selection, diet, human relationship, and numerous other attributes of human society. So we learn from the ecosystem. So then, why is biodiversity conservation is important? Biodiversity conservation is unlike any other sustainable development issue because loss of biodiversity is irreversible. Once you disturb the biodiversity of a particular area, it cannot be revived back. It cannot be recycled. Okay? Simply put, extinction is final. There is no second chance. If one species get extinct, now for example dinosaurs got extinct for about so many years now. We don't have such kind of animals in this world because extinction is final. Whereas with other issues such as ozone depletion, climate change, there is a capacity, albeit highly contested, among scientists for the biosphere to recover. There is no recovery from extinction. So, if in another case, if there is a destruction of ozone layer, it can be repaired. Or if any other thing happens on this earth, that can be repaired. But extinction cannot be recovered. So, therefore, we have to preserve the biodiversity with whatever variety it has got. Now, as human beings, we have to be part of this ecosystem because we share the Earth, the only planet in this universe, which has life on it. We haven't come across or we haven't landed on any land which consists of a life just like us. We have till date, we have not heard of any other life on any other planet. So India is the only place where biodiversity is found. So it's our duty, since we are visitors on this earth and we share our earth with all these kinds of animals and plants and insects. It's our duty as human beings with thinking power and bringing out solutions. It is up to us how far we are going to protect the biodiversity. So let's go ahead. So one example of this interrelatedness is the animal pollination required for the production of most flowering plants. About 220,000 out of an estimated 240,000 species of plants that require pollination are dependent on an animal such as a bee or hummingbird to perform this vital function. Over 1 lakh different animal species, bats, bees, beetles, birds, butterflies, and flies are known to provide these essential pollination services that guarantee the continuation of the plants in our croplands, backyard gardens, rangelands, meadows, and forests. Even humans also help pollination. Okay. These are some of the examples of pollination. Here we can see one flower. A butterfly or a bee comes and sits on the flower, and then the pollinated grains of the grains are carried by butterfly, and they dump it on another flower. where there is something called as pistil, which leads to egg formation. So that is how plants, they breed, they multiply. Okay, that is called as pollination. So plants depend on insects and animals and even human beings for its expansion. Now here an example of a bat in the process of pollination. So equally important is our reliance on biodiversity as a resource for human medicines. Of the top 150 prescription drugs used in the United States, 118 are based on natural resources. 74% from plants, 18% from fungi, 5% from bacteria, and 3% from one vertebrate that is called as snake species. 9 of the top 10 drugs in this list are based on natural plant products. Globally, about 80% of the human population relies on traditional medical system, and about 85% of the traditional medicine involves the use of plant extracts. In addition, natural products extracted from many hundreds of species provide a wide variety of diverse inputs to human industries. So there are so many examples: gums and exudates, essential oils and flavoring, resins and oleoresins, dyes, tannies, vegetable fats and waxes, insecticides, and multitudes of other compounds. It is clear that the survival of our own species is vitally dependent on the survival of other species and ecosystem. It is important to realize however, that the benefits that biodiversity supplies to humanity are delivered through populations of species residing in living communities within specific physical settings through complex ecological system or ecosystem. Ecosystems provide all human beings with the following critical functions for life. So what do we get from the ecosystem? Purification of air and water is done through the ecosystem. Mitigation of droughts and floods. So due to ecosystem, there is unlikely of cause of droughts and floods. Generation and preservation of soils and renewal of their fertility. This job is also done by the ecosystem. Detoxification and decomposition of waste. So whatever waste is dumped on the land, it decomposes. Pollination of crops and natural vegetation. Dispersal of seeds, that is due to pollination. Then cycling and movement of nutrients. Then control of the vast majority of potential agricultural pests. Then maintenance of functional diversity, protection of coastal shores from erosion by waves, protection from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays, partial stabilization of climate, moderation of weather extremes and their impacts, and provisions of aesthetic beauty and intellectual stimulation. So let us come to the biodiversity and the hallmark, which is one of the hallmark of life on Earth. It is the very backbone of sustainable development. That the current intellectual property rights IPR regime encourages commercialization of seed development, monoculture, protection of new plants varieties, microorganisms, and genetically modified organisms. Another example of direct self-interest to the human species is our reliance on plant and species for food. Human beings have used around 7,000 plant species for food over the course of history, and another 70,000 plants are known to have edible parts. Only about 150 food plants have been cultivated on a large scale, and currently 82 plant species contribute 90% of the national per capita supplies of food plants. As a consequence, our rich biogenetic diversity is being eroded irreversibly. We must have an alternative approach that will bring a balance in between formal intellectual property system and sustainable aspects of biodiversity. The developed countries are not rich in biogenetic resources but are better equipped in research and development. They use the biogenetic resources accessed from the developing countries. As a result, there is a beginning in the unprotected flow of genetic information from the developing countries to the capital rich West, and a protected flow in the reverse direction, mainly through patents and plant breeders' rights. So, the definition of Biological Diversity Act, given by the Biological Diversity Act of India, has defined various terms. Biological diversity means the variability among living organisms from all sources and the ecological complexes of which they are part, and includes diversity within species or between species and of ecosystem. Then another definition is biological resources, means plants, animals and microorganisms or parts thereof, their genetic material and byproducts, actual or potential use. Let us come to the intellectual property rights. IPR are meant to be rights to ideas and information which are used in new invention or processes. These rights enable the holder to exclude imitators. In exchange, the holder is required to disclose the formula or idea behind the product. The effect of IPR is therefore monopoly over commercial exploitation of the idea and information for a limited period of time. The purpose of IPR is to stimulate innovation by offering higher monetary returns than the market otherwise might have provided. History of IPR and biodiversity. The initial steps towards making biodiversity a commodity evolved from the United Kingdom wanting to use high quality seeds for agricultural production. This slowly led to the companies selling registered seeds. Later the government rewarded individuals who improved seeds further. This led to the development of breeders' rights, PBR, that became more commercialized and very soon restrictive. So these are some of the examples where we can see new plant varieties being developed by or invented by the scientists, agricultural scientists, and then they will be rewarded with some rights to exploit commercially. These are called as plant breeders' rights. For over 60 years, different forms of protection of new plant varieties through system of plant breeders' rights have in existence in industrialized countries. In 1961, Union Internationale pour la Protection des Obtentious Vegetables, French, UPOV, International Union for the Protection of New Varieties of Plants, as a translation, was established in Geneva for coordinating the inter-country implementation of PBR. Although the convention was signed in Paris in 1961, it came into force in 1968. It was revised in Geneva in 1972, 1978, and 1991. The 1978 Act came into effect in 1981. Now here's the headquarters of International Union for the Protection of New Varieties of Plants, IPO, Geneva, Switzerland. This is the administrative building. Now let us see, what do you mean by eligibility of protection? To be eligible for protection, varieties have to be distinct from the existing commonly known varieties, sufficiently homogeneous, uniform, stable, and new in the sense that they must not have been commercialized prior to certain dates established by the reference to the date of application for production. So these are some of the conditions that they have to satisfy to be included under the category of varieties of plant protection. In addition, in many countries, patents with full restrictions are also applicable for genetically modified organisms and microorganisms. It was started in the USA in 1972 with the patenting of genetically engineered bacterial strain invented by famous microbiologist Dr. Anand Mohan Chakrabarty, which is an Indian person. Now let us see what is the value of biodiversity. Diversity is the most ecologically sustained form. Diversified crops maintain soil fertility. Diversity optimizes soil management in rain-fed belts. Diversity means insurance against crop failure. Diversity optimizes labor availability. Diversity ensures food security. Diversity of range of foods ensures nutritional balance. Diversity provides a range of fodder to the cattle, keeping them healthy and productive. Diversity helps women control their farm economics and seeds. The advent of new biotechnologies and the capacity to identify and incorporate exotic genetic material into the commercial products has forced the pace of the change in the industry and in intellectual property system. Extensive commercial exploitation of genetic diversity catalyzed by research and development for obtaining IPR will decide the future of our rich biodiversity. Indian scenario. Now, what is the position in India about biodiversity? India is classified among the 12 mega diversity centers of the world. India's record in agro-biodiversity is equally impressive. There are 167 crop species and 320 species of wild crops, relatives, and several species of domesticated animals. Now you can see so many species which are found all around the world. The country. India is considered to be the center of origin of 50,000 varieties of rice, 1,000 varieties of mango, 100 varieties of pepper, 27 breeds of cattle, 22 breeds of goat, 40 breeds of sheep, 18 breeds of poultry, 8 breeds of buffalo, the world's total biodiversity, and several other varieties of pigeon pea, turmeric, ginger, sugarcane, gooseberries, etc., which ranks 7th in terms of contribution to the world agriculture. So India is rich and it has got varied heritage of biodiversity. It has 850 species of bacteria, 6,500 species of algae, 14,500 species of fungi, 2,000 species of lichen, 2,850 species of bryophytes, 1,100 species of petridophytes, 64 species of gymnosperms, and 17,500 species of angiosperms. Now we are rich with so much of variety of biodiversity. We are so lucky. We are proud of India. Indian scenario. And now, what is the legislations? What are the legislations or laws which are used to protect biodiversity with the help of intellectual property rights? In order to comply with the TRIPS, Trade-Related Intellectual Property Rights, and CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, India has passed Indian Patent Second Amendment Act 2002 and the Biological Diversity Bill 2002 respectively. According to this amendment 2002, the duration of the term of plant has been extended to 20 years for all product and processes. Now microorganism will be patentable subject in India. Earlier it was not. In addition, new plant varieties will get plant breeders' rights certification in India, as India has joined recently in UPO 1978. Earlier, India has also passed plant protection bill to develop a sui generis similar kind of system, a system of its own. The deposit of biological materials has also been included in compliance with the Budapest Treaty. Impacts of IPR on biodiversity. Now we come to the main topic of our discussion. The benefits of genetic diversity are long-term and rarely predictable. Humanity shares the common bowl containing only 20 cultivated crops that sustain 90% of our calorie requirements, Food Agriculture Organization (FAO). Then all 20 crops originate in developing countries. All are alarmingly vulnerable to pests and disease and depend on genetic diversity for their own continued survival. During this century, most authorities believe that in an alarming proportion of the genetic variability of our major food plants as it is available in the field has become extinct. So this is a very dangerous situation here. Some of the species are getting extinct. The conservation and development of the remaining crop diversity is a matter of vital global concern. Now, let us see global land use for food production. Now, we can say Earth's surface is divided into two kinds of surface. 29% we have land, which is 149 million kilometers total around the world. And we have 71% of ocean, that is 361 million kilometers. In the sea is bigger than land. We go to the land surface, 71% habitable land. So out of 29%, only 70% is habitable land, which comes to about 104 million kilometers. 10% glaciers, that is 50 miles kilometers per hour per square kilometers. 19% barren land, which comes to 28 billion kilometers square kilometers. So this is the utilization of the land that we have, okay, for the purpose of biodiversity and other activities. Then habitable land is 50%, that is 51 million kilometers square kilometers. Then you have 37 for forests and 11% for shrubs, 11% for shrub is the small bush. Agricultural land, 77% of livestock, meat and dairy is used, that is 40 million kilometers per square kilometers. Then you have global calorie supply, 83% from plant-based food is supplied to the world. Then global protein supply, 37% from meat and dairy, 63% from plant-based food. So plants are very important. Okay, let us go ahead. So thank you so much for your patient hearing. I hope you have understood. If you have any difficulties, kindly share your doubts on the WhatsApp group, and I wish you all the best and see you in the next class.